I still remember the first morning waking up in the warmth of New York City and thinking, oh, there's only one way going forward from here. I remember the way I felt opening the windows that morning, and I wanted to explore beyond the four walls to see America 17 years later, because the last time it was when I was 3 years old.
What is your name, where are you from, and what are you studying?
So, I'm sorry.
No, you're okay.
Okay, so my name is Anissa Kabir. I'm 21 years old and I'm from England. I'm an exchange student and I study psychology.
How did you feel the day you moved to San Francisco?
Okay, so the day I moved to San Francisco, I was so excited, especially because before I came here I spoke to a lot of people about their study abroad journey. I wanted to get as much information out of them as I could, and they had the best time regardless of where they went. They just enjoyed their experience so much, and I couldn't wait to do that for myself. Especially because I last came to the US when I was like 3 years old, so I don't remember anything at all. And I was just so excited to experience this all for myself and just to see, like, you know, what adventures I would go on. I think that was a big part of it. I was mostly just super excited.
Yeah, I think your story is like really inspiring and nerve-wracking because I couldn't imagine like moving that far away. Like from my parents and just like moving my whole life like that, so it's super inspiring, I would say.
Thank you.
Why did you choose San Francisco, specifically San Francisco State University?
Okay, so when we applied there was about 10 different universities and I really had to like narrow it down and eliminate options. I kind of had to think of it like, okay, I would ideally like to go somewhere where there isn't that much of a language barrier. So then that made me narrow it down to Canadian and US universities. And then from there I looked into each university to see what they had to offer. What I really liked about San Francisco State is how diverse it was, because for me, like, inclusion, diversity is like super important, especially being someone of a minority ethnicity. I looked into the different societies that they had, the different, like, I saw they had MSA, which was really active, and I think that was something which was really interesting to me because I wanted somewhere where I could like have a community, somewhere where I felt like I could fit in, and like a home away from home, which I think is so important. I also, well, because I'm from Bangladesh, I wanted to look into their BSA, so the Bangladeshi Students Association, and I was really happy to see that they had one because not a lot of the US unis do. That was definitely one of the deciding factors. As well as that, I just think the city, San Francisco, is just so amazing. It's super liberal and it offers so much, and I just feel really grateful like every day that I'm here. So I think that was probably one of the biggest contributors to why I chose San Francisco State.
How did your first meeting go with your roommates here?
Okay, so when I first came here I was with my parents and they kind of helped me settle in and like get all my things in. I remember when I first came I had 3 other Korean roommates. So I had Grace, who I shared a room with, and then there was the other double room which had Jess and Heron, also from South Korea. So when I first came, I remember it was like a very quick in and out, hi, bye, that was it. And then I was out because I went to Target and I was buying all my new supplies and everything. And I think it was perhaps the second night that I moved in because I had my orientation. We all had the same international student orientation where we sat down and we really like got to know each other properly. And I think what really helped is that in my house back home in England, we've always been a host family, so we've always had students, exchange students from all across the world that I've built relationships with. I've learned so much about their culture, and I think that really helped because I was able to communicate with them, and like I was just so interested in different cultural differences, culture shocks perhaps with them, like from Korea versus being in the US. And I remember like we had quite intimate conversations like the first couple days that we moved in, and we were talking about family life and like we were really vulnerable with each other, and I think that like self-disclosure is what made us like really close as a flat.
Does this feel like home? Does San Francisco feel like home?
Do you know what? Surprisingly, it's very similar. San Francisco is very similar. Because even when I think outside the weather, you know, it's a bit sunny, it's a bit rainy, it reminds me of England. The buildings itself, so the San Francisco State University, reminds me so much of my university back home, which is the University of East Anglia. I think it's because it's not really like, a lot of universities back home have that like historic feel to it, sort of like Harvard. But here, the way it's like concrete and like big buildings, it's super similar. Sometimes I don't actually feel like I'm in California until I've like left and I'm off campus. But I think one of the biggest things is community, especially because back home and generally in my culture, community is so important. And I think in recent weeks I've been able to like be a lot more involved and get myself out there where I'm more able to be part of something which really does feel like home. Particularly I've referenced BSA before, which is a Bangladeshi Students Association, and last semester they were new, they were just starting out, so there wasn't that much going on, and this semester they've really started with some events, and I've gotten a lot closer to the Bangladeshi students, and I think that sense of community has made me feel so much more at home, just having them and having people who are really like similar to me culturally, I think.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. It seems like you really found like your place here, which is great. What are some of the greatest culture shocks you have experienced?
Culture shocks. Okay, so first of all, I would say the fact that it's so big, because England is perhaps the size of like one state, California itself, and I think coming here, that's when I truly realised how big it is, because there's just so much more to see and do and explore. Like the roads are so different, they're just so much bigger, the cars are so much bigger, just the fact that like where I live in Cambridge, it's a small town and it does get boring, and then if I want to go to the nearest place where there's a lot to do, that'd probably be London, which is about an hour away, and there's not that much else to do apart from the other big cities. But here you can go like on road trips and go to different states, and I think generally coming here, that was a huge culture shock. Also, I noticed like how much things differ from state to state, because when I was in New York, it was very much like tall buildings, it was a bit more flat, versus coming here it's so much more hilly generally in California, and it's definitely not as flat. When I went to Chicago, it made me think of Europe a lot more, the way the houses were and the way it was arranged, and then also going to Miami, the way it was a bit more subtropical, I felt like that made me think of like Bangladesh, and I was just like, this country is huge, like it's so different. And I think that's what really shocked me, because I didn't expect that at all. I didn't think it would be as like vast as it is. I also had a lot of culture shocks academically, because again it's super different to how it is in England, from the social aspects of it to living in the dorms and the meal plan and the dining hall. It's so different because I've never had a roommate before, so I think that was a huge shock to me, because in England it's generally like not so common. You usually have like your own room, your own ensuite, but you don't really share. It's not that common to share unless you're like privately staying somewhere, and I think that was something which shocked me a lot. Also the whole schooling system, because the way we have our own desk and we sit and we have like pen and paper, whereas generally at home it's like lectures where everyone has their laptop out and they're like typing away, and it's not as interactive. We don't really have group work or group projects, and it was a lot like how I saw in movies, and I think that was something which really shocked me, but also something I was really looking forward to.
So would you say you like how it's different over here compared to back home, or what would you say?
Yeah, I would definitely say I prefer it here, because I think the teaching is so much more interactive. I've noticed in my classes there's a lot more call and response, so the teacher would ask a question and I participate so much more. In England, in lecture halls where it's like perhaps 200 students in one class, I don't really participate as much, whereas here, because the classes are smaller and it's a bit more like intimate and we have a lot more like contact time with the teachers, I do find myself participating so much more, and as a result I'm learning so much more.
How has this experience changed you?
I think this experience has changed me in so many different ways, because before I came here I would say I was quite closed-minded, and I think it has definitely shifted my perspective, but like in the best way. I think I'm so much more open-minded to like different concepts in the world, to different people. Even before I came here I was super limited, because I said to myself, well, when I go I would probably feel the most comfortable if I made friends with people in the similar demographic as me who are perhaps also Muslim, and I limited it to even thinking who are also like wearing a hijab as well, so that we'd be like really similar. But when I came here, that's when I sort of met other people, and I thought that that was not the right way to go about things, because I will never learn more, especially about other people, if I really just box off the people I want to associate myself with. And I think just being more open-minded to who I let in and who I interacted with and who I wanted to learn from taught me so much, and I think just diversifying my friend group has been like super rewarding. as well as that, I think I've learned so much just being out of my comfort zone, because back home in England, I would never take a train to another city alone. Even my own city back home, which is one simple train ride, I would never do that. I was scared. And now, like, when I went to Miami, I took the flight alone. Going back to England, which was a really long flight, I did that by myself. And I think just going out of my comfort zone and just saying yes to opportunities and saying yes to people and to just new life endeavors, I think has been so beneficial.
So you've spoken about the high parts of living here at San Francisco. Are there any low parts?
So, okay, in regards to the low parts of it, I think definitely homesickness, because when I first came, of course, there was that dread that, oh my gosh, because my parents came to San Francisco with me, and I knew I only had a couple of nights with them until they would leave, and I think that's what I was sort of dreading. It was also quite freeing, because I knew that's when I'd finally be alone and independent. But I think what helped is, because I had a roommate, I had that sense of companionship. But then fast forward to December, I went back home and I saw everyone, and I think because that was the first time I took a flight alone, and I came back home after the Christmas break to come home and I didn't have a roommate, I was alone. That is, I think, for the first time when I truly felt like very low, very alone. And it was hard because there's an 8-hour time difference. So when it's times of the evening where I'm just sitting in my room alone because I no longer have a roommate, I kind of felt like I didn't really have anyone, especially because everyone would be sleeping at the time where I want to text or FaceTime a friend or call someone. And I'm glad that I have all those features nowadays, but with the time difference it was hard, especially because it was still during winter break where all my friends had gone back home or like were visiting different places, and I was just alone in a dorm. And I think one thing that I've always found quite hard is like dealing with my own company, which is why I really liked having a roommate. And I think just dealing with myself meant I had to deal with my thoughts, and that was quite a challenge for me. And I think what I really tried to do from the beginning was find an outlet, somewhere, so like a vulnerable space to let my thoughts out onto. And this is something which I've been doing for a while, but I specifically wanted to dedicate a space for that for this year alone, because I knew this year would be like no other year. And I think I really found that in journaling. So this is a journal actually which I wanted to share. It is a very vulnerable space for me, but I think I'm glad to share some parts of it from the beginning. So this is like an academic diary which runs basically from September all the way up until the end of this year. It's got my little SF State sticker on it, and I think having this outlet just helped me get my thoughts down, especially when it was just me alone. And I really recommend finding something like this where you can just really almost like come face to face with your thoughts. And I think introspection, like reflecting, is such an important thing to do. So I'm happy to share some parts of this. This is actually really sentimental to me because I made this cute little photo collage of my roommate from last semester, Grace, and before she left I printed it into a frame for her and I gave it to her, and that was a really emotional moment for us because it was the last day before she left. I also printed out a copy for me to keep for myself, and it's just like a collage of our memories because we did a lot together, we spent a lot of time together, and I'm glad that we still speak to each other today. Like to this day we still maintain contact through like video call. So I'm just gonna skip to September, which is, oh sorry, actually it was August. Okay, so my entries start from the 1st of August because that is the day where I had my flight from Heathrow Airport, London to New York City, because that's where I spent some time. So a lot of it is me just like recalling what I did in the day. I spent the first 2 weeks in New York, or 1 week in New York and then a couple of days in New Jersey, and then it wasn't up until the 15th. I have my little plane luggage sticker still here which says 15th of August, the one when Anissa flew to San Francisco, and then move-in day was the 15th. So that's where I wrote about our flight, where I came with my parents and my brother. I will never forget that day because it was so stressful. We knew it was a domestic flight, so we underestimated how long it would take to get through the security and then all of that stuff. And when we got to the gate, my when we were at security, my brother didn't take his laptop out of the bag, so then they kept his bag behind. And at this point, they usually stop boarding about 15 minutes before the flight depart. So let's say it was departing at 11, 10:45 was when it departs, and at 10:30 we were at the security. That held us back for about 10 minutes, so we had 5 minutes to get to the gate. And my brother and my mum were still waiting behind to get the luggage, and like all of his baggage and everything that they had to inspect. So me and my dad ran off to the gate, and they said that it had closed. And that moment my heart sunk. I felt like I was going to burst into tears and I was just going to cry, because I thought if I don't get there, if I don't go for moving day, I'm going to miss orientation. And all of these thoughts were coming to my head, and I thought maybe this is a sign, maybe it's just not meant to be, why is this happening? And I just felt like everything was crashing down in that moment, because they said basically unless me and my dad got on the plane alone, we had to get the next flight, which wouldn't be till the next day. And then I didn't know what to do, and I was like, please just let us on. And then I looked back, and about 2 seconds later my brother and my mum came running, and then we got on the flight and it was fine, but it was so stressful. I'm just never going to forget that. So I documented pretty much all of August. So that's the first time I visited Dolores Park. My first week of classes, actually. First day of classes, I went to my first ever class. It was good. I then had a Target and Trader Joe's trip after to stock up on groceries. I read up on my class schedule and my syllabus. Then I wrote about fire drill, which happened. It's quite funny to read back on a lot of things, actually, because it's like, it was so exciting to go to Target, and now it's like I just do that every day. It wasn't until the end of the month where I had a chance to properly reflect, so I'll read bits and pieces of this out. Okay, let's just read it. This is just gonna be genuinely how I felt back in August. So the end of August marks 1 month since I've been in the United States, and it's been quite remarkable. This page allows me to reflect on all the things I've achieved in the month and all the memories I've created along the way. I saw much of America, from the bustling streets of New York City to the brightly lit lanterns of Philadelphia and the beautiful residences of New Jersey. The East Coast offers so much, yet I managed to consume only a tiny fraction. Looking back, it's been a journey, but looking forward, it has only just started. 2 weeks of school done, 2 more semesters to go. So that was my first entry.
Read like a poem.
Thank you. I've always loved writing. I was just a creative outlet. I've always been into creative writing. So I think I'm glad that I did this. I don't regret it at all. And moving on, we then start up September. So this is, again, just when I've started to settle in now. I've had 2 weeks of classes, and I've started to like get into the groove of how classes work, how getting the hold of public transport, making new friends. So all of that was just the beginning. So it's nice to actually read back and reflect on that, because I haven't done that at all. On the 8th of September, for example, was my little cousin's birthday. He just turned 1, and I remembered the day where he was born, which was a year ago, and I was still in England because I stayed with my auntie up until she like went into labour, because I was looking after her like little daughter. And I think it was just so incredible to think back, and because I never ever would have thought that a year later, a year down the line, that's where I'd be in a complete other country and I wouldn't even be there for his first birthday. I just would have never expected that.
I kind of love, like...
Do you know what, because Ramadan has started, she sent me a message yesterday and she put, missing you so much, Annie. Felt so emotional at the mosque. It was the first Ramadan without you. And that was so sad. I read that and I showed that to a friend, and that actually made me like really sad, because even though I moved out for university, I always came back for Ramadan because it's such a special month, and it also was it overlapped with the Easter holiday. It wasn't until I came back home for Christmas when my aunties were like, your mum was like a mess when you left. And my mum was telling me, she was like, the whole plane journey back, she would just keep crying. She would keep looking back at our photos in the week prior, and she would just keep crying. She couldn't sleep at night because I would get calls from her when it would be like evening for me, but like 4 a.m, 5 a.m. in England. I'd be like, Mum, what are you doing? And she would say, oh, it's just jet lag. It wasn't jet lag. She couldn't sleep for the first like 2 weeks. And I never realised how much it affected her.
I think that sometimes as kids we don't see our moms as like women, we just see them as our mothers, you know? So it's like she is still dealing with all these emotions outside of that identity of being my mom. Like, she's not just my protector and, like, you know what I mean? Like, someone that, like, gives to me and created me, but she's, like, a whole person with her, with her own experience and her own traumas, and, like, so kind of similarly, like, I wonder so much sometimes, like, how she's dealing with it, and, like, she doesn't always tell me because she doesn't want to make me feel bad. And she knows it will make me feel bad, like, you know, not bad, but, like, I feel so, like, indebted to her.
Even when I've had my low moments, I've never ever shared that with her. When I've never told her or anything, because that would just make it harder for her.
Exactly. Especially because you're so far and she can't do anything. But I think the most important thing, and that most, if not all of us feel, is like we just want to be remembered, you know? And like that's the best way to honor people, because like I want people to remember me, like when I'm gone, because there's nothing left of me here. Like physical things are exactly. Because I want to be remembered.
Serious, I'm not calling me.
You're good.
Okay, I'll just text him. Sorry.
You're okay. That was just funny.
I had a feeling which
the
is
timing.